To answer your question, Heather, the skin track sucks too.
Okay.
If you're lucky enough to live in the Pacific Northwest, you don't have to fly halfway around the world to hike to the rim of an active volcano. Everyone in Oregon and Washington lives within driving distance of a relatively short 5-mile hike to get to the top of Loowit, otherwise known as Mount Saint Helens, which is an 8,300-foot tall stratovolcano in southwest Washington that famously erupted in May of 1980. That's right, it's just a 5-mile hike to the rim of a famous active volcano. But there is a catch. You'll gain 5,500 feet of elevation over that 5 miles. Think of a 5,500 foot tall staircase without stairs. It would be like climbing to the top of the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, that monstrosity in the United Arab Emirates. It'd be like climbing to the top of that twice. It's non-trivial, but the reward you'll enjoy in return for taking on this challenge is worth all the suffering, even if it puts you through excruciating pain to get there and back. More on that later. First things first. If you're going to climb to the top of Loowit, you have to start early in the morning, regardless of the season. It takes over 7 hours to climb this thing and around an hour to get down on skis, give or take. So you'll be driving here in the dark because you should plan on arriving at the trailhead no later than 5:30 in the morning so that you can depart no later than 6 o'clock a.m. If you do this in the middle of winter, you'll also be arriving back at the car probably just as it's getting dark. I live in Vancouver, Washington, just close enough that sleeping in the car at the trailhead is less appealing than just getting up and leaving my house at 4 in the morning. But a lot of people do camp in their vans or their cars at the Marble Mountain Trailhead, and so the place was already a beehive of activity when I pulled in at 5:40 in the morning. Fill out a wilderness permit at the trailhead kiosk before departing. Enter your name and party info into this logbook and then fill out a separate wilderness permit with your name and details to keep on your person. This is an important step so the Forest Service knows where to start the search if you don't return at your expected time. It's a good idea to bring a pair of hiking shoes that are small and light enough to carry in your pack if you're going to do this climb, because Marble Mountain Snopark sits at about 2,600 feet of elevation, which puts it squarely in the marginal snow zone for the Pacific Northwest, meaning it's very likely you'll be hiking on dirt for the first mile or two, even in January. The snowpack won't be dependable until you get to about the 3,500 foot elevation level, give or take, and if it's not dependable above that, then honestly, you're wasting your time with the skis. Even when there is snow on the ground, most of the snow is reliably packed down and can be hiked on without technical footwear up to well above the tree line. The last time I was up here, we came across a couple of boys in their early 20s who'd hiked all the way to the rim and back in regular hiking boots. I don't recommend that course of action, but if it's early or late season and you don't know any better, sometimes it's possible. Speaking of footwear, if you're planning on skiing or splitboarding this route, know that you are not likely to complete the out and back any faster, really, than folks with snowshoes or crampons, unless conditions are specifically favorable to skis. Climbing and descending kind of turns into this 5-mile-long game of leapfrog, with you climbing slower but descending faster, but in the end, it sort of just kind of equals out, so plan accordingly. The only reason I ended up finally putting on the skis on the way up was because I got tired of carrying them on my back. Assuming your skins are nicely worn in, you can eventually glide pretty efficiently up the Swift Creek ski trail once the snow is reliably deep enough. I wasn't able to get good footage of the trail intersections because it was dark. I didn't think about that. I should have thought about that, but everything is well marked. Stay on the Swift Creek ski trail until it arrives at the tree line. The most technical part of this climb is right below the tree line where the trail crosses Chocolate Falls. In my other reviews of trails around Loowit, I detail a lot of these creek and river crossings that traverse complicated little canyons. Just because it snows on them doesn't mean they magically go away. Skiers and splitboarders will save a lot of energy and lower the potential for injury by dismounting and just boot packing across these canyons. There will be plenty of time to show off skills on the descent. Those who begin this climb at 6 o'clock a.m. will arrive at the tree line when the sun rises. Alpine sunrises from snowy mountainsides are breathtaking, especially when they're alpine sunrises from the side of a volcano in Cascadia. From here, you'll be able to see out across the south side of the Gifford Pinchot National Forest and all the way over to Y East, otherwise known as Mount Hood. And of course, there is a great view up to the summit of Loowit as well, glowing purpley red in the approaching dawn. Our climbing party probably spent about 15 minutes just getting photos here. Also, when you get to this point, this is your snack reminder. Having hiked for over an hour just to get here, this is a great spot to make sure you've taken in some fluids and had yourself a snack. If you should fail to do so, you're gonna have a bad time. Eat a lot more than you think you need to eat. Past this point, there will be some more tricky traversing that you'd be well advised to just remove your skis for, and then the trail obtains this ridgeline, touring over packed snow for a while. You're getting close to the point where a lot of the more sensible people who just come up here to sightsee enjoy the view and then they turn around. This means you have another mile or so of packed down snowshoe track before things suddenly get steep. Did I mention you can save a lot of time on this climb if you don't let pride get the better of you? How long does it really take to dismount your skis? Really? You can do this the easy way or the hard way. There's a lot of mountain ahead of you. Save your energy. Don't pull a hamstring trying to show off. Nobody looks cool trying to herringbone up an icy pitch. The views do get better as the trail ascends, obviously. But I really do love this knife edge here. It's magnificent. The downhill skiing on it is maybe not so great. It's awful. But just enjoying the view up the hill from here is quite a treat. I would be remiss not to point out that skis or split boards with skin are not always the best mode of travel in the backcountry, especially on heavily trodden, dense Cascade concrete. You're really doing this to show off because you ski or snowboard. You're cool. You're on top of the pecking order of recreationists. Congratulations. People in hiking boots with microspikes will be passing you left and right. Try not to be embarrassed or take it too personally. This is the burden you chose to carry. I pity whoever climbs this after the next big snowfall following the day we climbed it, because there was about 2 inches of this light, very mobile snow layer on top of a dense slab of pack ice along this entire route up. The next storm is going to turn this area into a veritable fuselage of avalanches. The practical effect for the day we were climbing it was that there was a lot of sideways sliding, yet another one of the ways that nature complicates seemingly simple maneuvers. Every time my skins got a good bite, the surface underneath gave way to this sideways action. It's fine if it happens like once or twice. Slow trip up to insanity though if it keeps happening, and it kept happening. This is also the kind of thing you should be keeping an eye on as you climb. On this day, the top layer never got deep enough to pose a real threat, but that's not always a guarantee. After pulling off the final ridge line that passes where all the sightseers stop, the trail abruptly gets a lot steeper. Just to put it in perspective, this route gains approximately 1,500 feet in the first 3 miles. That leaves only 2 miles to gain the next 3,000 feet. It's rather abrupt. You'll notice. You're going to be seeing a lot of the ground directly in front of your face, taking tiny steps, hucking your weight back, and trying not to slide backwards. Bring crampons. You should have eaten a couple more snacks by the time you arrive at this rocky ridgeline, where all but the most intrepid or stubborn will have removed the sticks from their feet. This trail is a great beginner to intermediate trail precisely because it contains a lot of little challenges like this that are just enough to demoralize you a little bit without inducing a full-on rage quit. It's a real fine line between promoting growth and breaking spirits. Generally, I think that we all agree we'd rather walk around in snowboard boots than ski boots, but climbing steep mountains in the snow is the one area where ski boots do confer the advantage, as you can use the stiff boot frame and squared off toe to chip away at the snowpack and make little stairs for yourself. So if you're climbing with mixed company, put the skiers in front so they can cut the steps. Right here is where the mountain presents the first of 3 seemingly impenetrable walls. If you could afford a movie score for this climb, this is where the horns would start to swell and the rest of the brass section would come in with great vigor, and the percussionists could finally stop counting rests because it's about to get dramatic and imposing. Now, I didn't include sound from the GoPro here, but while reviewing footage, I could tell from the sound of my voice that I was definitely starting to fade here. I should have been eating a lot more than whatever amount of food I had consumed up to this point. But the fun part of downward spirals is that you never stop yourself to catch up. Not until it's too late. Now, it's a well-known fact of mountaineering that Whoever has climbed a steep pitch before you and cut in the first footholds invariably is the tallest person in the world. Either that or they have monstrous quads. Perhaps both. Whatever footholds exist in the aspect you're climbing, they will be too far apart. The GoPro can't do justice to how steep this face is, but I definitely had to shorten my poles as short as they would go. If it were icy, I would have had to have an ice axe. It's steep. Okay, it's really steep. Eat something before you climb this face. This is really where my quads just started burning, screaming at me. Here, I'm going to stop and look around with the GoPro just to give a better idea of how steep this really gets. You can kind of get an idea what we're dealing with when using the horizon as a reference. Also, the fact that you're standing up while kind of hugging the ground is a pretty good indicator that you're standing on something steep. If a staircase were this steep, it would probably not be up to code in most counties. This seismic monitoring station is a great place to stop and eat lunch. Hear me? Lunch. Not a small snack, not 3 shot blocks, but actual lunch. Not just half a cheese sandwich. You've probably been climbing for over 4 hours by the time you arrive here. It is lunchtime. Also, I think this is where I definitively started losing my judgment, as is evidenced by my fingers showing up in the lens. This is not the kind of mistake I typically make when using my iPhone to shoot video. Are you getting enough calories? Are you sure? I wasn't, and I kept turning down food. I don't understand my behavior at this point. Anyway, slather on another layer of sunscreen while you're here. At least I did have the presence of mind to do that. Just above this point, the grade slackens just enough that it makes sense to put the skis back on, if for no other reason than just to get them off your back for a while and start zigzagging up the hill. It's also an irrefutable law of the universe, especially mountaineering, that whoever cut the first contours into the mountain in front of you had either better crampons or better skins than you and was much stronger than you are, because they're always just a little bit too steep. This wall is really half a dozen in one hand and 6 in the other as to whether it's better to ski up it or boot pack it. I mean, neither option is ideal. I can't tell you what the best solution is though, because my mind was fading fast. Here's the second wall on this climb. This is also the final push to the false summit, which is a concept that makes a lot more sense when you actually experience it. Even though you've been told it's the false summit, you know this. Factually, you know it is the false summit, but some willful part of your consciousness just is so convinced that you're almost to the top. And instead of wisely turning around because you have, in retrospect, okay, just in my case, I'm talking about myself. In retrospect, only had a package of shot blocks, a candy bar, and 3/4 of a cheese sandwich since you ate breakfast at 3:30 in the morning, you push ahead, determined to crest what you think is the final ridge. Seriously, it really turns into high drama getting up this false summit, right down to being steep enough you'll be on your hands and knees crawling up to get to the crest. And that just makes it all the more disappointing when you finally crest the ridge and see that, nope, you're not there. Look at all those people above you. There's at least another 500 vertical feet of climbing. At least. So there I was, something like 7,500 feet up the side of a mountain, finishing off the last of my shot blocks, realizing I'd bonked. Bonking is where you just hit the wall. Your body says you're done. But bonking comes with an extra set of complications when you're climbing a mountain because, well, summit fever is a real thing. You can't just turn around now when you can actually literally see the real summit. It's so close. One of the nice things about climbing a mountain, at least this one, is that once you're this high up on the hill, it's kind of a party atmosphere. Everybody's really nice to each other, kind of sociable. Everyone knows that everyone else is crazy to be doing this in the first place, and we all know we're propelled by the same level of madness. So, birds of a feather, we all see the same craziness in each other. This kind soul I ran into nudged me to keep going, and he even stuck around while I rested as we pointed out the names of different mountains we recognized far below while I attempted to get enough energy back for the final push to the summit. You can see everything from up here. There's Mount Hood, Mount Jefferson, the Three Sisters, and Mount Washington. You can see Butte Camp Dome, Silver Star Mountain, the Tatoosh Hills, the West Hills in Portland. There's Lake Merwin and part of Yale Lake visible. Tons of scenic clear cuts. And today we lucked out as there was this kind of a storm coming in, and it just cast the most beautiful light on the summit and across the landscape. We were all so lucky to be alive up here in this moment, to see the grandeur of Cascadia spread out before us. This was a great spot to just sit on the snow and be delirious for 15 minutes. All right, I was so bonked that I had to jettison my pack 1,000 linear feet from the summit because I was not going to make it. But here it is. This isn't actually the summit. This is the rim. But technically the summit is like a quarter mile and 300 feet of climbing over to the west, and I was too tired for that today. Doesn't matter. View's pretty much the same. Just a little note about safety on the rim. You do need to stay a good 15 feet back at least from what you think is the edge of the rim, because that's not actually the edge of the rim. Rather, that is a cornice of snow that forms every year, and it's actually a pretty dramatically big cornice. It's a false floor, so you're not standing on the gravel pile that is Mount Saint Helens. You're actually standing on snow, and it can break away. So if you go out too far on that cornice, you'll break through, fall to your death in the crater. Nobody wants that. Obviously, you can see a lot from the top of this mountain. The part that surprised me was that not only are all the standard peaks visible, but you can see all the way to Mount Baker from here. Mount Baker! Like, that's almost to Canada. So that means you can see the Olympics, Mount Baker, Rainier, Adams, Hood, Jefferson, Washington, and the Three Sisters, plus most of the Washington Cascades and Northern Oregon Cascades, and a good share of the Portland metro area. You can see a lot of snippets of the Columbia River as well. There's just so much you can see. The thing about mountain climbing is that once you get to the top of the mountain, you're only halfway done, because you've got to get back down to the bottom of it. And that's why you brought skis or a split board or an old sleeping pad. Granted, all the people who started at the parking lot at the same time as you and didn't bring skis did make it to the top of the mountain in half the time and have already glissaded down and are halfway back to the car by now. But you brought your split board or your skis so you could feel a sense of smug superiority on your way back down the mountain. So let's just not think about them right now. Just peel off those skins, latch your split board together, lock down the bindings, put the skins away carefully so they don't get stuck together, clean all the snow off your helmet, put your sunglasses away, get out the ski goggles that you kept in your pack this entire time so they wouldn't be fogged up when you got to the top of the hill. Marvel at how much better you can see through ski goggles than the sunglasses you wore all the way up here. Tighten down the boots, put them in ski mode, hoist that pack on, click into the skis or board, and head on down the hill. And this is where you find out that if you didn't leave yourself any gas in the tank on the way up the mountain, it's going to be the longest, most painful ski trip to the bottom ever. Conditions are variable. This is steep terrain, and steep terrain requires energy to descend, especially if it's variable. It was kind of like that powder patches with ice patches with powder with ice with powder with ice and rocks. Assuming you didn't bonk halfway up the hill and just kept going, this is actually a really awesome descent. I'm only going to show the footage where I was able to competently ski this because I probably got about 750 feet of good descent and then I faded fast, and the footage of me skiing the rest of it's embarrassing. So embarrassing. Anyway, this is definitely an advanced descent. It's deceptive, kind of like the top of Palmer if you've ever ridden at Timberline Lodge. It's a steep pitch all the way down to the tree line. That 3,000 feet that you climbed over 2 miles, well, you've got to go down that, right? You've got to go down that wall, and it turns into a sustained 2-mile-long black diamond pitch all the way down. It's a great run. It's awesome. It's fun. You'll be panting happily by the time you get down to the tree line. A couple of things to watch out for here, though. This is backcountry skiing. These runs are all off-piste, and there's no markers. It's easy to get lulled into complacency and forget that you have to be on the lookout for surprises, cornices, cliffs, rocks under the surface, and all manner of natural features that can just take you out, maybe injure or kill you. But it's all within reason, and for the most part, you should just enjoy this. This is the good stuff. There's no other way to enjoy it. Just look how spacious this is. Just huge. This terrain is just enormous. Eventually, you'll end up back below the trees on the Swift Creek ski trail. This is narrow and terrifying on the way down. It's awful. As you can see, there's tree wells everywhere. Like I said, it's narrow. It's narrow. There's rarely adequate snow cover, and on top of that, there are a lot of other people on foot, both descending and climbing the trail. Pretty much as if it's light out, there's going to be people on it. Keep in mind that inexperienced hikers easily can wander up this far when the snow is particularly packed down. So it is on you. It is up to you as the experienced outdoors person that I assume you are if you are up here, to assume that they don't know to look out for skiers. You were warned. Ski in control. You'll run into dirt on the way down, most likely. Part of the fun, though, is seeing how far you can go before having to remove your skis. Never as far as you'd like, usually, although if you get lucky, there will be snow all the way to the parking lot. If you get really lucky, someone on foot will stop you and ask you if there's a ski lift up there. Yeah, that really happened. They're like, are you on your way to the ski? Is a ski lift up there? Do you have to walk all the way to the top? Somebody really asked me that. And I'm sorry. They were so disappointed. Anyway, thank you to all of you, my viewers and my Patreon supporters, especially Damon Corey, my Lomi Goodness level sponsor, as well as Heather Van Valkenburg, who is all over this video, by the way, Jason Moore, Ty Morgan Marbit, and Todd McCarthy, my Hero Dirt level sponsors. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this content with your friends who are interested in trail guides like this. And if you want to support what I do, navigate to patreon.com/voiceovertrails, where you can choose a sponsorship level that feels appropriate for the value you get out of a detailed preview of trails that you want to tackle. Now, get out there, go climb a mountain, because it's there.